Honeysuckle and Rachel Blackmore, Racing's golden duo!
Tiger Roll joins the greats and beats Magic of Life.
Best behaviour on the near side with the wettest of saves for Paddy Brown and Oliver McKiernan. Local trainer Derek McLaughlin again in the honest Lord Larry Edmonds in front.
It's Sampo on the stand side of Faugheen at the second last. Faugheen lands in the lead by half a length and goes on from Sampo.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of We're Going Chasing. I'm joined today by an ex-Paddy Power colleague, Tomas Jakeman. Thomas, how are you?
Great, Killian. Thanks very much for having me on the podcast. I have to say it's been really good so far, and it's great what you're currently doing, and it's always nice to hear insights on Irish racing in particular. So delighted to be invited onto the podcast, and looking forward to it.
No, and it's great to have you. As I mentioned to Paddy Aspel there last week, Thomas or James is still out in Pakistan at the wedding, so I think he's due home 26th to 27th, so he hasn't to struggle out there too much longer in the heat and the sort of culture shock he's finding over there. So we might just crack on there. We're going to preview the 26th and the 27th in Leopardstown, and the 26th, 27th in Limerick, and the King George there as well. So we'll make a start here at the Leopardstown on the 26th. So it's a maiden hurdle to kick off the card. Parmion, I think you could say it, for Willie Mullins and Joe Donnelly, the favourite. 117 rated flat horse, high definition for Joseph is second favourite. I know I saw Johnny Janine's post, or his column on the Racing Post there today. Yesterday, he's pretty sweet on Parmion for Willie, like he's sweet in every Willie Mullins horse, but I think he's probably the one to take out of it. I'm not sure how high definition will go. You often see these really high class flat horses struggle a bit over hurdles, so I suppose he's a year older. He's a 4-year-old turning 5, so maybe that'll stand to him as opposed to going juvenile herding. Have you any opinion on that race, Thomas?
Not a huge amount of opinion, no. I also watched the Johnny Deneen podcast as well, and he seemed very sweet on him. It's interesting, high definition. Actually, there's been support for him since the opening prices. I think he's 6s into 3s, so, and he's also owned by Magnier, so high profile connections. Just going to be very interesting to see what comes out of that. But no strong opinion really, to be honest. We'll be watching with interest.
No, that's fair enough. I'd probably stick with the favourite in a multiple or something. Moving on then to the second race, 2 mile maiden hurdle there as well. Willie again with the favourite, Dark Raven. He's a 5-4 chance. Viva DeVito, 5-2 chance for Willie. Dr. Bravo won a bumper in Fairy House recently. He's 11-4, and then it's 12's bar. You'd imagine Willie holds the key here again with the top 2 in the betting.
Definitely, yeah. Viva DeVito, I was actually really fond of him actually at the start of last year, particularly when he won in Tremor. I know he didn't beat anything spectacular that day, but really fancied him actually on his maiden hurdle debut. But unfortunately just seems to just pull far too hard and waste a lot of energy, and I think that just seems to be his Achilles heel. It's interesting as well, Paul has gone for Dark Raven as well, so I don't think I think Paul will have the insights there, to be honest, and I would be thinking maybe Dark Raven. Dr. Bravo, he won a bumper. Again, it's very hard to assess, isn't it, and to compare, especially first time over hurdles. But again, I wouldn't probably have an overly strong opinion. I think probably Dark Raven would be the pick there, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. Cracking on into the first graded race of the day, the Frank Knight Juvenile Hurdle. It's a grade 2. Lossiemouth 5-6, Nusret 7-2, Cougar 6-1, and then 8's bar in that. Obviously Lossiemouth very impressive in Fairy House on Hatton's Grace Day. She quickened up and she won fairly comprehensively there. She's a pretty short price here. Would you like to take her on?
Yeah, look, she's the obvious one that stands out. Would I be backing her at 5-6? I don't think so, to be honest. Nusret at 5-1, he was 5s, he's into 7-2. I thought was a pretty good each way bet at 5s, that the value seems to be gone for that. I know he didn't beat anything very, very good last time out, but he did also pull very hard throughout that race. I was very impressed with the way he just just seemed to just turn a foot, put the race to bed in a matter of strides. I think he could improve significantly, and I think he's a big danger if he can settle. Of the others, again, it's very hard to assess. There's a lot of guesswork in the juvenile category, as always. I was also very fond of War Correspondent. Ray Cody trains him. I know he's a massive price, 25 to 1. But I've always had a lot of time for Ray Cody as a trainer. I know he came third and Cheltenham didn't jump as well as he can, but he'll definitely stay. And I think, I don't think he's probably good enough to win this race, but definitely think the first 3 or 4. I know Paddy Power do place betting on the first 3 and 4 places. I think there's value to be had there. He's one that I'm interested to see how he fares out. But that's really my opinion on that one. Do you have any thoughts on that race?
No, not really. I think, I don't know what I like to back the favourite at a short price like that. And obviously, War Correspondent, eye-catching booking with Jack Kennedy coming in on that. Maybe MacTeague for Emmett Mullins, horse that was rated 96 on the flat. Now, his last race in a tie, he finished 6th. Having won in a tie before that and won another race in Sedgefield. I think he had a pretty good time. The first race he won in a tie, so maybe he's overpriced at 14 to 1, but he's carrying the penalty there as well.
Definitely, yeah. It's interesting to kind of what's the horse that won the race in Cheltenham, Scriptwriter. I know he hasn't ran, but the horse that came second in that race, trained by Gary Moore, I know he probably didn't beat anything, but he was very impressive since. I think he's won by like 20 lengths last time out. So it's still kind of developing. We'll have to see. But I think it'll unfold a lot more after that race on the 26th, definitely.
Yeah, it's sort of it's a grade that sort of comes to life after Christmas. Sorry, you know a lot more after the grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival. So we might move on there to the next race then, the 2 mile novice handicap hurdle, careers@dorangroup.com. So low style for Barry Connell and Michael O'Sullivan, the grade 1 connections from Marine National in the Royal Bond. They have a 7 to 4 shot there. Tony Martin with Brookie is second favourite at 9 to 2. Anthony, you liking this race?
Yeah, look, I suppose low style. He opened at 3 to 1 last night. He's into 7 to 4. I don't think I'd be backing him at that price. Barry Connell's months are flying. He seems to be having an incredible season. Again, it's nothing very strong stands out to me. I suppose Tony Martin's horse, Brookie, he won his maiden hurdle last time in Limerick. He's stepping into handicap company, given a mark of 110. You'd imagine he might have something up his sleeve, but he is 9 to 2. So again, not massive value there either. That there's nothing really that stands out to me of significant value really in that one. You've got Hey Johnny as well. He really disappointed in Cheltenham. Well, he actually unseated in Cheltenham. And since then has pulled up in Gorham Park. He's 14 to 1. Just nothing really would stand out there to me from what I can see.
Yeah, the only one for myself was the 4/6s. He's 14 to 1. His 2 runs over hurdles. Pulled up last time, pulled way too hard over 2.5 miles. He's back down in trip. They're trying him with the hood now. Handicap debut 118. If you want to forgive the last run, he might be something. Like the maiden he won in Clonmel in November wasn't that strong. So I know Green Glory for Charles Burns was 5th that day. He's a horse that I'd be definitely looking out when he runs in a handicap. He won a bumper at the Punchestown Festival last year. He's had 4 runs over hurdles. I don't know, has he been trying too hard? He's entered in the novice handicap hurdle 29th. So
I think he's actually entered in Limerick as well, the maiden hurdle. So
I'd like to see him in that novice handicap, and just to see what he's capable of. I think he's better than what he's shown in the 4 maidens. But yeah, I think if you want to forgive the 4/6s his last run, he might be one at a decent price. But yeah, low style probably has a bit up his sleeve there off 104. So the next race then is the first grade one of Christmas at Leopardstown. It's the Novice Chase over 2 miles, Field Door and even money shot, Hollow Games 9-4, San Roy 4-1, Midnight Run 16-1, and Visionarian 25-1. I'd be in the Field Door camp here. He gets £6. I think he's probably a better horse than Hollow Games anyway. And obviously Jack Kennedy is sided with him over Hollow Games, so it's probably another sort of tell there. But yeah, I think the £6 will end up crucial here, and I think he'll win that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think Hollow Games did anything wrong when he won his beginner's chase last time in Navan. I think they said after the race that they thought that he would improve for stepping up and trip as well. So I think it's very obvious. Fildor, like, it's not very often you see a 4-year-old going over fences, and it's very clear as to why they have gone over fences. He jumps very slick. He's a very slick jumper. So I think even money is a backable price, to be honest. I think Fildor is pretty solid there, to be fair.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right, so we might move on then to the 255, the handicap chase at Leopardstown. Embittered off top weight, 141 is 11-4. Silver class for Tony Martin, 130. Final orders, who's on a 4-timer for Gavin Cromwell, a 7-2 shot, and then 6 is bar. Interestingly, Rob James rides Embittered, so obviously probably a £7 claimer, and he's basically not a claimer. Like, he's ridden hundreds of winners over on point to point, so he's stealing 7 there. So that'll give Embittered a good chance, bringing him down to 11 stone 6. He's obviously the class horse in the race, so that'll give him a good chance. Would I back him at 11-4? I'm not sure. So what do you think about that yourself?
Yeah, look, it's this type of category, 2 mile chase. A lot of these ran against each other previously. I think the fact that Rob James is taking off 7 is definitely a value there. He's going to come down to 11 stone 6. The only one, like, at the prices, I don't see there's any value in backing any of these. Like, Embedded 11-4, Silver class is 130. I thought Final Orders was the interesting one in the race. It's come from Garvin Donnelly, who quite clearly can't train a horse, because I think he was rated I think it's rated about 95 over hurdles, and since going chasing he's now rated 129. Ran over 3 miles last time, and he's coming back into a 2 mile handicap, which I think is unusual and usually would make me a little bit nervous. But I think Gavin Cromwell has mentioned numerous times how good of a jumper he is. He's the one that's very interesting for me. Would I back him at 7-2? It's still fairly short, to be honest. But I think there's still improvement in him. I think he's the less unexposed of them all that I can see anyway, But again, no major opinion at those prices.
Yeah, and then just another sort of one on Grange Walk for John Ryan, won the race last year. Obviously, we're big John Ryan fans here, and we're going chasing. So, yeah, sure.
Definitely, yeah.
Have a chance.
I'm not sure. Yeah, like he could, but I just think John Ryan's horses have gone. I know they're running as frequent as usual, but they don't seem to have that same spark, to be honest. He hasn't had much of a feature in anything of late recently. So, and he ran behind Silver class last time out and was comprehensively beaten. So I'd be surprised, I'd be honest.
Yeah, and he's effectively £10 higher from winning the race last year, so he's definitely up against it. Moving on then to the last race in Leopardstown on the 26th, the bumper. Did I ask you that? 11-10 for Willie Patrick and Sean Mulrine. Paul Nolan trains Parker Kings for JP, ridden by Derek. Gordon Elliott 4-1 shot with Poor Le Feliz, and Oliver McKiernan has one called One and Only. Actually heard a good one about One and Only recently. It was a schooling race, schooling bumper, Tipperary about 3 weeks ago, and a horse won fairly easily. And it turns out it was One and Only. It turns out there was a couple of high class horses in second and third, and I think it was a pretty strong bumper overall, even behind those two. So obviously he's been backed from 20s into 9-1. I didn't get the 20s myself, but yeah, like you'd imagine if you take the form of that schooling bumper, like on the face of it, he should be getting pretty close here. I know, did I ask you, that's a real talk horse. I've seen a lot about him on Twitter over the last couple of days. Cost 32,000 as a 3-year-old. So, like, yeah, I'd fancy one and only just on the face of that school and bumper. I don't know if you like anything else in it, Thomas.
Yeah, no, like since I've spoken to you, that is definitely the one that is of interest at the prices. Yeah, it's quite significant. Oliver McLaren has definitely come more on the radar in the last couple of years. He's got a handful of really good horses to look forward to.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I think he's definitely a good each way proposition there. But look, you never know, Willie Mullins, do you? Like at 11 to 10, you could be looking at an absolute monster. You know,
Definitely, yeah.
and I think on your last podcast you mentioned that Willie he's been quite quiet by his standards in bumpers recently. I think I was looking at the entries on the 28th to the 29th. I think there's 33 horses entered for a bumper in Leopardstown, I think, and he has 12 of those horses, and I think half of them have not even ran yet. So I would say there's going to be this is going to be a bomb of good horses that we're going to uncover over the Christmas anyway, definitely. But hopefully Oliver McKiernan's horse can reach the front. I'm definitely behind you on that one, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we might just move on to Limerick then on the 26th, and the first race we look at is the second race in the card. 2-mile maiden hurdle. Foxy Girl, favourite for Henry de Bromhead and Rob Corr. If you think back to the Rob Corr podcast at the maybe 2 months ago now at this stage, Rob gave her as a pretty decent horse. Obviously she came from France. She's had the year off and she's strengthened up a good bit, so she's in there at 11-4 shot. Willie has a reserve in the race at 3-1. That he's not mightn't get in, so we'll have to see on that. And then Martin Brazel has a Dr. Brown Bear then as well. But yeah, I suppose just purely on what Rob had said earlier on, and she had been second to Liberty Dance, who since came out and won a listed race, obviously for Davy last Sunday in Thurles. So the form of that's pretty strong. It's going to be her second run over hurdles. She's taken on the Geldons, but she's off 10 stone 6. Michael Connor takes off a further 5. He's pretty good jockey, so like I'd give her a good chance there at 11-4.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's good value in fairness. Michael Connor taking off further 5, 10 stone 1. I'd be fairly familiar with Dr. Brown Bear. Interesting, he's come from Brendan Duke's yard. They've bought him, and Martin Brazel now trains. I would expect them to get a bit of improvement out of him. Brendan Duke's horses tend to run very inconsistently. So I definitely think that there's a bit of improvement there, but I think the weight difference, Foxy Girl is going to be getting nearly a stone there. I think that could be significant. So I'd probably favour her in that race.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we move on to the next one then in Limerick, the O'Kelly Brothers Demolition Hurdle. So Pinkerton 8-11 shot, Longhouse Poet 7-2, Summer Melody 11-2 shot for Charles Burns, and Boyd at Claremont 6-1, and then a 25-1 shot covering out the field. Obviously, Longhouse Poet, winner of the Thyestes at Gordon Park last year, back over hurdles. Obviously trying to mind his mark over fences. He was pulled up last time seen in a Pertemps qualifier in Punchestown, but yeah, I don't know what to be. I'd be backing at 7-2 anyway.
Yeah, it's an interesting race. Longhouse Poet's obviously been going over fences. Then you've got Pinkerton at 8-11. And then you've got Summer Melody as well, who I think is a really interesting horse. I've had him in my tracker for a while. It's interesting that Charles Burns actually said that he thought after he won his maiden hurdle that he was the equivalent of the second best he had to that good horse that he had that was Blazing Cal, yeah. And he was very well backed last time out when he ran in his when he made his debut in a maiden hurdle. Disappointed really that day, to be fair. He was 7th to 23. Interesting they go into this race. Why not just go into a maiden? It's a bit bizarre. I know he gets the weight allowance, and Paddy Burns is going to take off another 5 as well. So I think that is definitely of interest as well. But he's bred by Arctic Cosmos, who generally are stayers. They don't have a huge amount of speed. So it's 2 mile 4 hurdle. I think I would favour Charles's horse in that race, to be honest. I think that the weight might play to his favour, but he's gonna have to be at a fairly high level to beat Pinkerton, who's rated 136. So yeah, I think I'd probably go with Charles's horse in that one. I think.
No, that's fair enough. So we might move on then to the Mayor's Handicap Hurdle, the 208. So Kilbree Warrior, winner of a maiden the other day, is the 2-1 favourite. Global Equity 15-4. It's all about or all about Eve. 11-2 shot from 20s overnight. She's been fairly punted. Getaway Goldie then for Gordon and Jordan Gainford, a 9-1 shot. Anything you like here, Thomas?
Well, I actually watched the main hurdle that Kilbree Warrior won recently. It's only a couple of days ago, actually. Yeah, I think it was a bit of a farce of a race, to be honest. 9-4, I wouldn't be going near it at 9-4. I think that she basically just stole the race. They gave her way too much rope, and she ended up winning convincingly. And I think that's why she's reappearing so quickly, because they're getting the minimum penalty of £7. I think the one that really stands out to me over the course of the 2 days, the 26th to the 27th, so the one that sticks out to me and is actually in this race, and that's Belle Mattel. Willie Mullins trained. I think 12-1 is very big, to be honest. I would expect her to be shorter on the day. She's not the most natural of jumpers. But she's been very competitive in some much better handicaps than this. She probably wasn't close enough to be getting noticed. But I think she came seventh in Punchestown.
Seventh in Fairyhouse behind Bugs Moran in the novice handicap.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, that was fairly good run, in fairness. And even in Punchestown, I backed her that day, and she didn't jump well at all, and still was only, wasn't a million miles away. Like a first run back of the season. I just hope that if her jumping's a little bit better in Mayor's company, I think she's gone under the radar a little bit at 12-1. But that would be the main fancy for me. I think very overpriced in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Might move on then to the 240. Obviously the main race in Limerick over the Christmas, the Faugheen Novice Chase. Jerry Colombe, an 8-13 shot, Kilcrut 15-8, Authorised Art 14-1, Adamantly Chosen 16-1, and then Aaron's Day rounding out a 66-1 chance. Looks a match, to be honest, between Jerry Colombe and Kilcrut. I'd have had Jerry Colombe down as more of a stay-in type. It's 2 miles, 3.5 furlongs, but crucially for Jerry Colombe, it's going to be soft or even heavy ground. I think that's what he needs. So, like, it is probably a distance that's short of his optimum, but he did jump so well on debut that, like, you'd fancy him to win this over Kilcrut.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think it's a bit of a coin flip, really. I think it's a lot to do with Kilcrut as well as to what he comes out and does. Yeah, it's a difficult one to assess. I think on the ground, Jerry Colombe might just edge it, but again, I wouldn't have a strong opinion in this one at the prices. It would be solely a spectacle, really, to watch and see, and hopefully then we can kind of gauge for the future. Like, they've never ran against each other. The only thing about Jerry Colombe is, like, he hasn't had a massive test yet, has he? Like, in terms of opposition.
No, he hasn't. He's only had 5 runs, I think. So, obviously he hasn't ran too much, but I think he showed on Chase and debut that he's a pretty slick jumper, and like the race conditions are going to suit. It's just a question of, has he the speed for shorter than 2.5 miles? But I think with the ground being so soft, and we're probably going to get heavy. I think there's a bit of rain going to come down in Limerick in the next couple of days. So hopefully we get the heavy ground and we'll see him to his best effect. So we might move on then to Leopardstown on the 27th, and we'll start at the Beginner's Chase, the second race in the card, 12:35. Duffel Coat, Dysart Dynamo, Irascible, C Decor, Slip of the Tongue, and Caddyshack. Dysart Dynamo go off a short price here. He'll be an interesting one to see. Is he back to his old tricks from last year? You'd imagine he'll just bounce out and hopefully jumps well and wins the race. But you'd like to see him settle a small bit better, and hopefully fences put a small bit of hands on him.
Definitely, yeah. It's one of the most frustrating things in horse racing, I think, is when you get a horse that has so much ability, but they just can't be. You just can't put a lid on them. Like, and he is another one that goes into that category. But he's running over 2 miles. Like, he's super talented. Like, I was so impressed with him last year in the build up to Cheltenham. But that was always my fear in Cheltenham, and then even Punchestown, that he was just basically going to run himself into the ground, and that's what he did. But yeah, no, really exciting horse, and yeah, look, I'd be very surprised if anything gets close to him. Like, as long as he jumps well, I think that's going to be the key area is his jumping, really.
Yeah, and he's another one of those Willie 2-milers that have to come out now. So obviously we had appreciated El Fabiolo, and Flame Bear ran over 2.5, but you imagine he'd go back to 2. So he's sort of the last one of the big 4 coming to take on John Bon hopefully in March. So hopefully he goes well. Next race in the card, then the first grade one of the day, Paddy's Reward Club Chase. 2 mile open company chasers, Shack and Poursois. 13-8, Blue Lord 7-4, Captain Guinness 5-1, Gentleman Demi 11-1, Cour Sublime 14s, Andy Dufresne 16s, and Jeremy's Flames 25s. Shacken turning 10, about to turn 11. He's the favourite there, ridden by Paul Townend. Look, he's a real Leopardstown specialist, and like I'd be very surprised to see him beaten by Blue Lord, but maybe something else could beat him. Like, I think he's only in his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 runs in Leopardstown, or 5 runs in Leopardstown. He's only been beaten once, and that was by a Plutarch this race 3 years ago. So like he just comes to Leopardstown and wins easily most of the time. I'd be happy enough to back him at 13-8. I don't think maybe Cour Sublime or Captain Guinness might be one to follow him home. I don't rate Blue Lord at all. I just don't. I don't like him. I know he won the Clonmel Oil, but I just can't warm to him at all. I can't warm to any of those 2 mile chasers from last year, really. And I like Cour Sublime got very close to him in Punchestown last year. I think Leopardstown might be more up his alley. Interestingly, Rachel Blackmore rides Captain Guinness. He won in Navan, beating Riviere de Tel, who's since bombed, but that was his sort of career best run. So like, he's a 5-1 chance. Yeah, I might side with Cour Sublime each way.
Yeah, I think that would be a safer bet, to be honest. Like, Shack and Poursois is 10 now, and that's always the danger that are they going to come back the same animal, but you'd be very surprised if Captain Guinness is going to beat Shack and Poursois. But then he was very impressive last time out as well. But they've met 3 times, and on 2 of those 3 occasions been very comprehensive. So maybe Cour Sublime, the more so kind of more lightly raced, and he's only a 7-year-old. Blue Lord is also a 7-year-old as well. I don't have a strong opinion on it, to be honest. It's one of those.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, I'll happily go with Cour Sublime each way anyway, and chance him at about 14-1. So the next race on the card then looks a pretty easy one. Facile Vega 2-7, Ele Tom 6-1, Intranet 10-1, Astro Diamond 11-1, Pat Drew 25-1, and It's Swatch United 15-1. 50-1. Can anything come near Facile Vega?
I don't think so, no.
No, I can't see it. Obviously, it should be, if there's anyone, I'd imagine Astro Diamond, having come third in the Royal Bond, only beaten 4 lengths by Marine National, getting £7 off the entire field here. Maybe she might come second, but I can't see him being beaten. But yeah, she's 11-1. That's the one I'd be going with anyway.
Possibly, yeah. There might be some value there. Say first 3. I know it's only 6 runners, but I often look at the place market with Paddy Power to see if there is any value there. And Patrick takes the ride there as well.
He does, yeah. But on the face of it, looks a fairly straightforward task for Facile Vega, and imagine he'll be odds on for the Supreme.
Oh, yeah, I think she's 1-4 now currently. So
yeah, so I'd imagine wins this and goes off even money then 4-5 for a Supreme then. So the next race in the card then, 2 mile handicap hurdle. Anna Bonina, top weight there off 140. Tudor City, Watchhouse Cross, Winter Fog, Annexation, the Tide Turns. Interesting one. Winter Fog, obviously fourth in the Pertemps last year at Cheltenham when trained by Emmett Mullins, now gone to Willie. He's an 8-year-old. Like, hard to know if Willie's going to get any improvement out of him, but he surely will, won't he?
yeah, no, it's a very interesting move. Like, the one thing I would say is that it's not a case that Willie just takes these horses and runs them under his name and hopes for the best. They're tried and tested, I think, before they run under his name. So I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get some sort of a positive response from him. So he is definitely an interesting runner for sure. Look, it's very competitive. It's one of these typical handicaps. Marble Fan is down the bottom there, Tony Martin. Still think he's well handicapped. I think 116 is lenient. I think he's been a bit unlucky on a couple of occasions. He carries, I think he's 10 stone 2. I was just looking at the prices for that race. What price is Marble Fan on that race currently?
I think I only see predicted prices here, but he's predicted 7-1 maybe. I'll check to see if was anything on odds checker. No, it's all SP, but he's predicted about 7-1.
Yeah, of course. And then you've got One Last Tango is creeping down the bottom as well. Owen Griffin. I still don't think he's done improving either. He's rated 119 now. Didn't win a very good race at Wexford now recently. It was pretty low level stuff, but he's a former bumper and maiden hurdle winner as well, so he might be interesting. I thought Watchhouse Cross was really was very good last time out. He really bounced back to form out in front. I think that is testament to Henry de Bromhead. His horses seem to be definitely running a lot better this year in comparison to last year.
Yeah, definitely.
But he looks more of a stayer to me, and he's going back to 2 miles.
Yeah.
So just struggle to see how he's going to win off America 138. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think the ones down the bottom are of interest, but again, it's all down to the prices as well. I'm not going to be backing any of those if you're getting 3 or 4 to 1. I'd rather watch it, to be honest.
No, definitely. So we move on then to the sort of the big race of the day, the Paddy Power Chase, the 0 to 150 handicap. So it's headed up by Ciel de Neige, 149. Look, there's any amount of really, really good horses in this race. Looking, it's going to be Max Field at 28. I think Panda Boy is the current favourite. Couple I like, obviously, I put up Gabby's Cross here a few weeks ago. He's about 16 to 1 shot now. Interestingly, Peter Carberry comes in to ride that. Must have been no other jockeys in Henry's. They must be all down in Limerick. So he rides that. Rachel on Ain't That a Shame for the same trainer. He was obviously just touched out in the Munster National by the big dog. The big dog has gone in again in the Tri-Town. So, and the big dog runs in the Welsh National. So like there's been a bit of substance to that for him as well. Another one I started looking at, Mr. Incredible. I know we touched on it here the other day with Paddy. He's actually gone to Willie, now owned by Paul Byrne, who owned Noble Yates before he sold it to Robert Rayleigh Cohen. There could be juice in him off 140. Like, obviously he won a beginner's chase last year. Then he was second to Hoyce and Yorna grade 2, hammered really in Newbury, and then he refused before being pulled up in Tramore. Like if Willie can unlock him, he'd have a serious chance off 140, but I think he's a bit of a monkey, and he's pretty difficult to train. So be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, I know he's a very interesting profile, but not straightforward at all. No. I think he's currently 10 to 1 at the moment. So it's really up to you whether you want to take a punt on it if it jumps off. Who knows? You could definitely be getting a lot of value there at that price, I think. But I think the obvious one for me is definitely Ain't That a Shame? Like, is an 8-year-old now, but very lightly raced. Second in the Munster National. They finished 9 lengths clear of Donkey Years. They just seem to get into a battle, the two of them, for a finish. And I think the big dog has come out and won again since. That, to me,
Yeah,
I think Ain't That a Shame is definitely one that should be on everyone's radar, really. The fact that he's still got such low mileage in the clock.
yeah, definitely. Now he did get 7 for coming second, which it's a fair hike, like when you didn't win a race. But I suppose, as you said, they were 9 lengths clear of Donkey's Years. So Donkey's Years has £7 pull now with Ain't That a Shame. But he's a pretty sharp price now at 13-2. So yeah, I am happy enough with.
Definitely, yeah. I suppose he has ran against a lot of these in that race in Limerick. A lot
Yeah,
of those horses we oppose here. So he did run against Fighter Allen actually in Fairyhouse in this time last year. Fighter Allen actually finished 9 lengths clear of him. So that's actually interesting as well. Fighter Allen is actually quite lightly raced as well, 7-year-old. Look, it's always a lottery. Like, Fighter Allen's 33-1.
yeah,
But he's totally out of sorts at the moment. But I think for the viewers, I often look at the Willie Mullins website before the day of the race, and very often you can uncover some kind of useful nuggets of information. So I'd be interested to see what they say about Fighter Allen actually at
yeah.
33s.
No,
Yeah, they'd be my view.
No, that's fair enough. So we might just move on then to Limerick on the 27th there as well. And we'll start off with the grade 2. So Favori de Campado, saying that definitely wrong. Harry Desangre for Henry de Bromhead, Calanisi Star. Obviously, it's part of our 10 to follow there for Oliver McKiernan. Let's be clear about it. Female Approach, Jungle Pros, obviously on a serious upward curve. She steps into grade 2 company now. And Sante Donna rounds out the field. Obviously, Jungle Pros be getting £7 from the Geldens, so that'll give her a chance. I think she's predicted to go up at about a 15-8 shot. Calnisi Star about 5-2. So it'd be interesting to see that one and to see how that goes. But I'd be siding with Calnisi Star, especially with the ground conditions looking like it's going to be soft and maybe even heavy ground.
Definitely. I think Jungle Pros has just been one of these, a little bit like kind of Flooring Porter, kind of not yet to that extent, but has just like massive improvement, quite incredible. I think Gordon Elliott actually said after one of the races that she won that they just gave her a little bit more daylight, and she just seemed to just absolutely just improves dramatically for that. So she obviously is not a horse that likes to be kind of surrounded by other horses. She needs plenty of kind of space. But again, I would agree with you. I think Khaleesi Star looks really exciting, to be honest. I think to beat Monbeg Park by 16 lengths in a bumper, and then come out and beat Pink in the Park by 4 or 5 lengths, he looks really good to me. And I think he's a little bit under the radar just for the simple fact that he's trained by Oliver McKiernan, which is nice to see, but we'll have to see who comes out on top. But I would think Khaleesi Star is the one for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd be in that camp too. And then maybe just to touch on one other horse there in Limerick on the 22nd, 27th. Coulda Sheva for Henry de Bromhead, obviously part of that €1 million point last year. She was third on hurdles debut behind Grange Clare West. She lines up in a mare's maiden hurdle over 2.5 miles. I'm not sure what price she's going to be, but you couldn't see her being beaten there. Darrow O'Keefe down to ride, and you'd imagine she'll win that fairly handy. She'd be a mare that'd be probably not a mare's novice hurdle horse, just purely because she's probably need a trip, but she'd be one that could step into handicaps or some of the graded races against the Geldens later in the year. So that sort of rounds up Limerick, unless there's anything else you have picked out in the 27th.
Not really, no. Like, it's typical, like the day I come on the podcast, there's nothing dramatically that I really fancy. I think out of the 2 days, I really do think Belvedere is quite overpriced at 12. So I think I'd be I'd be hopeful that she'll run a big one anyway in Limerick.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Is there anything else that you think that that might pop up over the course of the Christmas that might be worth looking at?
Yeah, as I said, green glory for Charles Burns. If he does run in that novice handicap hurdle, I'd be fairly interested in him. That'd be the main one. Like, it's hard to know when you don't have the declarations yet, but yeah, I think James is back the 27th, so we're going to be doing another sort of preview of the 28th and 29th on the evening of the 27th, so hopefully get that out to you. But yeah, I think
definitely.
once we have the decks,
just one quick one there.
Yeah,
there's one quick one that I'd mention there. Over the years, I've had some great success with John Joe Welsh horses. Particularly, It's All About Eve when she won her bumper. There's been 3 or 4 over the last 4 or 5 years that he has had winners at Limerick. I noticed that he's actually changed his license name now. His son has actually taken over the name. But he has a horse there called Castle Hill Boy is the name of the horse.
Yeah.
So he's had 8 runs to date. He's been placed twice. They were both in a bumper in Cork 2 years ago, and also third in another bumper in Thurles, which was also November 2021. Ran recently in October, 29th of October in Galway, and came 4th to 20. He's been given a mark of 100. I think that could be lenient enough, to be honest. John Joe Welsh and those connections typically target Limerick. That is very much their prime target. They always have at least one that is set out for that. So I'd just be interested to see if he runs first of all, and see what price he might show up at. He's one I'd keep an eye on, Castle Hill Boy.
No, that's fair enough, and I think we'll sure myself and James might pick that up there on the 27th once we see the declarations for the 29th. So I think that'll do it for sort of this the 26th and 27th preview. Thanks a lot to Thomas for coming on, and hopefully if you'll have us, we'd like to get you on at some stage again if you tip up a few winners.
Definitely, yeah. Well, like I think if I have a few winners now, I think James will come under a bit of pressure, obviously. So
James is under pressure already, I'd say. All right, cheers, Thomas. Thanks a lot.
All the best. Take care.
Bye bye.